teacher. Good evening, this is News.PH, but it's not politics as usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros.
Nanugmok nga po ang Pilipinas dahil sa labis na pamumulitika. Naglaho ang pananalig natin sa isa't isa. Humina ang kumpiyansa sa atin ng mundo at ang pinakamasakit, nawalan tayo ng tiwala sa ating mga sarili. Sa puntong ito natin sinumulan ang pagtahak sa tuwid na daan. Bilang ama ng bayan, nakaatang sa aking balikat hindi lang ang mga suliraning ating dinatnan at mga lumilitaw sa kasalukuyan. Obligasyon ko ring paghandaan ang kinabukasan.
Looks like we're going to have a good discussion of the President's fifth State of the Nation address he delivered on Monday evening or Monday afternoon. We have a very interesting mix of people tonight. Our guests, Sunny Africa, Chairman of Ibon Foundation, Professor Antonio Contreras from the Political Science Department of De La Salle University, Peter Perfecto, Executive Director, Makati Business Club, and Congressman Elpidio P.D. Barzaga of the 4th District of Cavite, and of course, an ally of the President. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Were we all surprised by the President we saw on Monday? Were we surprised by a conciliatory and not very combative President? Professor Contreras.
Yes, I think I was expecting a firebrand. I was expecting a more confrontational President because the last...
Fire-breathing?
Fire-breathing President.
Yeah, dragon?
What we saw was a teary-eyed head of state. I think I was expecting that he was going to be like how he defended the constitutionality of the DAP when he sort of, made this statement against the Supreme Court. So, but that was a pleasant surprise.
Pleasant surprise.
Because I have always been saying that I think the President should begin to act like a statesperson. And I think that's something.
Pleasant because why?
Because there is
you felt that...
There is an opening. There's an opening for a dialogue rather than a division. Although he still had the discourse of, if you are not for me, then you must be against people. I mean, you must be against reform.
Yeah.
That's something that is still there because that could not be removed from his discourse overnight.
Peter, were you surprised?
Well, yeah, I guess like many we were surprised, but again, I think it was a positive development. Not that it was something he could have planned. I think he's a president that really feels, and not only him as a president, but his cabinet. We know that they feel quite hurt by what is going on now, especially in some quarters in media.
What do you mean by what's going on now?
That
Criticism?
the extent of the criticism, making it appear that they are themselves stealing money, that they are themselves trying to.
Is that really the criticism, that they themselves are stealing money? Parang wala namang ganun, di ba?
I
Hindi
think
naman sa
there's
pinagdududahan ng mga tao, si Presidente o si Butch na, kayo you're stealing money.
No, but
It's not so
there are
much
some
that, right? It's
commentators
more
who
the
are, there are some commentators who are already saying that.
Okay.
So I guess that's why they're hurting, because they do want, I think genuinely they want to do the reform.
Okay.
Now,
So that's why he decided that, and maybe his advisors decided that maybe you should take a conciliatory tone.
I don't know if his advisors advised him that, because I've been told that none of them really know what the final SONA will be until he reads it.
Yeah, okay.
Because he does a lot of, he keeps changing, he keeps on adjusting it. So
Yeah. Sunny.
It was novel. I mean, you have to grant him that. The emotional part of the end was a bit of a novelty. I mean, I'm sure you've sat through countless sonas.
Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh.
More
so-
than 20.
I don't know if you're going to agree with me, but
Yeah.
I think that emotion, that moment of emotion in the end was a novelty.
Yeah.
But actually, if you cut to the meat of the SONA, it's not a normal speech. It's a State of the Nation address. You sort of, you should put a bit of some higher standards to it more than the novelty. While the president apparently seems sincere, I doubt he was acting. Hindi naman siya parang honor. I unfortunately think that, like other SONAs, it was more a political spectacle and it was lacking in context.
Or political theater?
Yeah.
John Eric does
It was
political
actually,
theater. And political theater is not bad.
not
ha?
necessarily a bad thing, exactly.
Okay.
Not necessarily a bad thing,
Yeah.
but the SONA, unfortunately, it was novel in terms of the emotion, but didn't break from the tradition of 20 SONAs perhaps, that it was lacking in context. It was a tendency is you play up what you've achieved
Yeah.
out of context.
Oh.
The president yesterday gave very partial indicators of improvement on the jobs and poverty front, which is disappointing because you want to be candid about the problem to sort of lay out the solutions.
But there is no president who will, in his or her SONA, admit sa mga pagkakamali or,
well,
beat himself up black and blue, right?
That would have been
That would have been
actually a
novel.
breakthrough because this administration from the very start has claimed to uphold to being a break from the past. It's more than any other administration. It has spoken about good governance, participation, democracy. I think that would have been a very welcome piece of political theater for the candidate to stand there. Mga kababayan, ang laki ng problema natin. Let's rally together. Let's move forward. Instead, what we heard was, mga kababayan, huwag kayong mag-alala. Despite all the political noise, things are better. And governance-wise, trust me. I know what's best for you. I'll have your back. So, rather than actually be candid about the state of the nation, rather than lay out a proper map of how to resolve those problems, what we got was a partial use of statistics to say that things are getting better. I think a very wrong view of what progress counts in the country. I mean, all this talk about these global indicators about credit rating agencies and we're open for business to foreigners. It's kind of old. I mean, that has been said so many times. So I think it was very novel, apparently sincere, but very lacking in historical context and a sense of really current social and political realities.
Oh, you said a mouthful. Let's have Congressman P.D. Barzaga respond. Sir, una-una, were you surprised by this conciliatory and completely
Not
perhaps
necessarily,
not combative tone?
because we have to consider that the president was emotional during his SONA, because I think he really was frustrated in so far as the DAP issue is concerned. Sa tingin ko, talagang he did what he should do in order to improve the lives of the Filipinos during the last 4 years of his presidency. Unfortunately, with the Supreme Court decision and with the various criticisms hard against him, insofar as the DAP is concerned, parang nalimutan na ng ating mga kababayan kung ano ang kanyang mga ginawang proyekto sa paggamit ng DAP.
Okay, pero kasi for example, in journalism, may kasabihan na you're only as good as your last story, di ba?
Yeah.
Or there's parang hindi masyadong naaalala yung body of work mo. No, ang maalala lang yung huling pagkakamali mo. Parang ganon. Di ba ganon?
And perhaps that was the reason why the president started with his accomplishments starting 2011 up to the present. Sapagkat
To really
nalilimutan
remind
na ng
us,
ating mga kababayan kung ano ang ginawa ng ating Pangulo. And historically, when you are about to end your term, talaga medyo bumababa ang iyong satisfaction rating.
Yes.
Because at the start of your presidency, of course, people are hoping for so many things.
And there's that euphoria, hindi ba?
Yes.
Oo. So, ang mataas ng expectation, syempre, you don't meet all the expectations, kaya medyo bababa. Parang ganon.
Definitely.
Oo.
Because with all the problems in the Philippines, ang sabi nga ni John F. Kennedy, itong ating mga suliranin will not be finished even during my first term, during my second term, not even during my lifetime, not even during the lifetime of our children. But what is important is we must know the problem and start
But
solving
as
the problem.
Congressman PD, as a congressional ally of the president, were you happy that he took a conciliatory tone
Yes, very
as
much happy.
opposed to how he was when he addressed the nation?
Yes,
a week or two
definitely.
before that?
Mas natutuwa kami ngayon
Okay.
with the way he delivered his conciliatory speech.
Why? Bakit kayo natuwa?
Sapagkat nakikita natin ang sinseridad ng ating Pangulo. At pangalawa, sabi mo nga kanina, halos mapaiyak ang ating Pangulo, and I think everybody would agree, even the critics of the President, that the words are coming from the heart of the President. No less than the spokesman of the UNA, my good friend Toby Chanco, said that he rated the speech of the President at a scale of 1 is to 10, 9.
Okay, and you say that with a smile. And you always have to say, my good friend, whenever you refer to politicians from the other side. Okay, we have 4 minutes left before we go to a break. But Professor Contreras, you wanted to say something.
I think what is novel about this is that for once, I think the president recognized the fact that he's mortal. He is not infallible. I think what shocked him, I think, in the past days is the fact that he always came out as maangas, kumbaga sa Tagalog. Angas.
Malakas ang dating?
Well, angas. May word na angas was like infallible, yung
Can do no wrong?
Can do no wrong.
I'm always
But
right,
with
ako
all
lang ang
this,
tama.
with the
ganun.
DAP ruling at the Supreme Court, the 3 impeachment cases filed against him, you know, it will not prosper, but it's going to chip a little bit off from his credibility. It's going to take off some of his time, you know, defending himself. And the realization that, you know, like what was said, you know, the public is turning away. So a big portion of the public is saying that you are doing it the wrong way. So natauhan siya, medyo nasaktan.
Yeah, if the public is saying that you're doing it the wrong way, does that mean that they've forgotten everything the president
I don't
has
think,
done?
I don't think so. I think ang public naman, hindi naman totally walang utang na loob eh. Hindi naman ganun. I think that is my problem actually with the president. Yung napaka-dualistic narrative niya, that there is always the white and the black. If you are criticizing me, then you're against development. But there are many critiques that are well meant, and there are many criticisms that would like to improve.
Yeah.
Ako, nagkikriticize ako sa kanya, pero hindi ako against development. So, may ganun siyang klase ng diskurso. At kahapon, nung Lunes, andun pa rin yun. Pero nag-tone down na. So, and I think, I used this in my previous interviews. I said, lame duck na kasi siya technically. He's not yet that lame duck, but he's entering the lame duck phase. And he's also wounded. He's in pain. So,
Masakit yun lame duck na wounded pa.
exactly. And that is
You're
why...
so mean.
No, that is polite. In fact,
That's polite.
he's wounded because he's wounded by all these things. The AP, nasugatan siya eh. Pag ikay lame duck ka na nga, pero may marami pang sugat na dumadating na nararamdaman, di siyempre, it's either you have to reflect that. And I think the president did
Shouldn't
the
we
right thing.
all?
Yeah, we should.
Shouldn't we, whether or not we are in public service.
Yeah,
diba?
we should. We should, and I think-
we cannot always be right.
Yeah.
Right?
But the problem is he projected that image. Or many of his supporters would like to project that image, that he is morally righteous, he's always on the right side. At
Tuwid na daan nga eh.
Oh, yun na nga.
Wait, Sonny, before you talk, let's balance things out a bit. Peter, your observations on that.
Well-
Itong if you are not with us, you're against us. That kind of tone, although toned down.
Well, we'll have to remember this is an accidental president. That's how I'd like to look at it.
Ano ba yan? Wounded lame duck accident.
He didn't go after this.
Alam mo, nanonood ang
He
Malacanang.
didn't want this. He didn't want this. He didn't go after it.
Yeah.
He didn't plan for it. I don't think
Yeah, he was forced into it.
He was forced into it.
Okay.
And
Parang
but at the
tumakbo
same
ka,
time, I
pag
think
hindi ka tumakbo.
he was firm in his conviction on the tuwid na daan. And I think he felt that they were doing the right things towards tuwid na daan. And yet, there's all of this frustration and impatience, whatever, from people, that parang wala siyang ginagawa.
Yeah.
Yung pinakamatindi dyan, yung noy-noying ng kaliwa. In charge nila of noy-noying. You know, I think that's totally unfair. But that picked up. That
Yeah.
picked up in social media, and
Yeah.
it still picks up until now.
Yeah. No, but
so-
address that issue about itong yung hindi lang yung wounded lame duck, yung the mindset, although toned down nga as Professor Contreras is saying na if you are not with us, you are against us.
Well,
As taken in the context of the tuwid na daan.
Well, I think maybe I would like to think he's referring more to certain people who really who are saying that he has done nothing. I think maybe that's his reaction. Then you must be against me. Then you must be siguro maybe you're supporting those that I'm going after now. Those I'm trying to make make accountable.
Is that a fair comment or conclusion? Na if you are criticizing him for
No, I
something,
don't
then
think.
you must be.
No, I don't think. No, that shouldn't be a fair conclusion. I mean, especially with people like Wanna Change, people like there are many of them in social media. I think many people do want to help his reform agenda forward, but they feel that they need to criticize when it's needed. But there are many though, on the other side naman, yung tinatawag niyong apologies, I think there are many who do not wish to support, let's say, an impeachment call because we don't think that someone else can do better right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, maybe the logical next person in line may not exactly be the best person to have now. But, you know, elections are
Who
coming.
could you be referring to?
Ako rin. You know, I feel we've gone overboard with this impeachment thing. If we want a democracy, then we have to live with our decisions. We have to live with who the people choose. And I say
Yeah.
that whether that's left, right, center.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, we should
that's
stick
that's
to,
my ano now.
What do you say? We
Let's-
should stick to them and then
Let's stick with them unless they're totally corrupt, but you know,
Completely.
completely.
Impeachment is still part of the democratic process. When you say that we have to respect the democratic process, impeaching a president is within that. And when we say that walang papalit, then you're saying that there is no vice president. We have to also consider that
Yeah.
as well. Because if you want to take the political process to be taken seriously by people, then we have to put a stop to that kind of
Wait, are you
discourse.
for the impeachment of the president?
Well, not necessarily.
No, you're
for.
just saying that it
I'm
is
just saying,
part
and
of
then
the
I mean,
political
it will.
process.
I think the impeachment process will not. You know, it's a game of numbers.
Yeah.
You know that very well. But at the same time, it's going to be learning. Let it be a learning process that we learn a lot. That,
Hayaan
that we
na lang,
teach
oo.
people that you know even the president can be taken into account. Can be, you know,
Held
can
to account.
held to
Yeah.
account.
Okay. Okay. Oh, you know, television, it's also a game of numbers. We have to earn our keep. So we have to take a commercial break right now. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Alam po pong kaisa kayong mga nasa bulwagang ito sa paniniwalang hindi dapat ipagkait ang benepisyo sa ating mamamayan at dapat nga itong makarating sa kanila sa lalong madaling panahon. Kaya nga po, ipinapanukala namin ang pagpasa ng supplemental budget para sa 2014 upang hindi naman maantala ang ating mga programa at proyekto. Kasabay po nito, nananawagan din tayo sa pakikiisa ng Kongreso upang maipasa ang isang joint resolution na maglilinaw sa mga definisyon at kaisipang tila pinagtatalunan pa.
Welcome back. You're still watching News.PH. I'm Pio Ontiveros. Still with us, Sunny Africa, Professor Antonio Contreras, Peter Perfecto, and Congressman P.D. Barzaga. Sunny?
I think we have to correct this thinking that the impeachment is a matter of tacticizing, because whenever we hear this idea that, yeah, but if you impeach him, who comes next? First, right now, it's speculative. Secondly, I think I agree with Professor Contreras, it violates the idea that the impeachment process is a democratic process. And actually, I would want to take off from what they said, it's supposed to be a learning process. So hindi siya parang laban sa basketball lang na you impeach to win. It's not just that. You
Yeah.
impeach because it's a democratic process. It's within the rights of the people to demand the impeachment of a president. And then I think one very, very important education aspect of this is, if the impeachment process is underway, we will see three things. We will see, one, how the Congress actually plays out. We'll see, will the Congress be acting irregardless of the clamor on the ground? Will they be acting irregardless of the evidence that might leak out in the media? So I think that's a very important lesson from the impeachment process. Win or lose, we will see how the Congress will react to that. Secondly, also very important, win or lose, we'll see how the administration reacts to that. If we see a lot of maneuvering, if we see a lot of money changing hands, if we see a lot of positioning for 2016, if we see a lot of horse trading and all this politicking, again, that will show actually the character of the administration. So again, times of crisis, you show your characters. I think that's going to be a very useful thing. And lastly, I think very, very important, the impeachment process is a numbers game in Congress, but for us, more importantly, it's a numbers game outside of Congress. It's an educational process. It's for people actually being educated about what kind of president or what kind of elected leaders they have. Going through a process, okay, what have they done wrong? Is it affirmed or not? At the very least, you will create debate, you will create discussion. And for us, again, taking a long view, democracy is about actually getting people active, getting people active in political affairs and getting them informed about affairs. So I think outside of it's a numbers game in Congress, and I think totally it shouldn't be seen as a tacticizing thing. Yeah, kung di siya, naku, paano ba si Binay? Ang point namin, if it was a genuinely democratic process with people learning how to take action, let's say na the next person that comes along the line is worse than the president, he or she will face, we hope, a more empowered, enlightened
But I
citizenry.
think maybe where Peter's coming from is that, we've had too many of that Too much of that already. Too much political upheaval. No, we've had 2001 and then and all. Wait. That's for another episode. But sandali. But teka muna. Are you are for the president's impeachment?
For the process, yes,
No,
definitely.
not for the process. Are you for impeaching the president?
Yes, right now I think he has broken
Yeah.
the trust. I
Okay.
think he has behaved in complete violation of the standards of good governance that he himself set and has been talking about the last 4 years.
Why do you say we shouldn't reduce it to tacticizing? For example, 2000, when Erap's impeachment breezed through the House of Representatives, it wasn't really a numbers game because all Manny Villar had to do was bang
He rushed through
right
it,
after
yeah.
the prayer, bang Gavel, shoot to the Senate.
I'm saying we shouldn't reduce it to tacticizing because the impeachment is not just about replacing the person. It's about expressing what we think of the current person in office. Ngayon, again, let's put it on the table. People are saying, yeah, but the Bines are even more corrupt. That's the buzz, di ba? Yan ang mga kwentong kanto. It may be true, it may not be true. But assuming it's true, which I'm not saying it's true, the point is, if you go through the impeachment process, then Binay comes there, dapat the impeachment process was let it run its course, get people educated, huwag tantaran si Binay. Impeach Binay as well. Ngayon, if our main frame of reference is, let's keep avoiding political upheavals, that means you've lost faith in your democratic institutions, you've lost faith in these mechanisms for checking political power. Kung takot tayo sa political upheavals, if you want some sort of static political system, di magbalik tayo to some kind of authoritarian legal dictatorship kung gusto natin if you want that kind of
Good
stability.
idea.
Might be,
Just kidding.
I'm not promoting that, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
Pero I think let's not be fearful of political upheaval for its own sake. If it's for the cause of a larger good, of
Yeah.
democratic processes, of changing an administration that should be changed, huwag tayo matakot siya.
Oo, but then, kasi nga, di ba, because of all these political upheavals, EDSA 1, EDSA 2, then EDSA 3, ang daming nangyayari sa bansa natin. Where are we today, di ba? But wait, are you going to say something that will be within the episode or do we have to do a part 2?
Well,
Have to do a part.
you know, we talk about political upheaval as if it is dysfunctional. You know, it could create also, it could be a creative form of destruction as well. We can reform.
Creative form of?
Creative form of destruction. You destroy old systems to be replaced by new ones. And I think what is interesting about this presidency is pushing the limits of the breaching constitutionality. It's trying to do things that are not within the Constitution and in the context of reform. But I'm not saying that that is wrong. I'm saying that that is a novelty.
You try
That
to
you're,
do one
okay,
thing.
you're trying to come up with reform, but at the same time do some creative ways of finding a path that would make the reform quicker and perhaps ayoko gamitin yung word na lumusot challenging the line between constitutionality.
Kaya nga kumambyo na nga.
Kaya
It's
nga.
a supplemental budget, etc. Congressman Kong PD.
Well, of course, I think it would be very unfair to say that the President is doing something not in accordance with the Constitution or he is trying certain acts which are unconstitutional in character. Siguro tingnan muna natin tingnan muna natin ang prevailing circumstances at the time that DAP was implemented. It was implemented in 2011. At the time, the President was only on his 7th month of presidency. He was the president who was elected with the highest percentage among the candidates since after the EDSA revolution, that's IPAC, much higher than ERA. Pangalawa, mataas ang expectation ng ating mga kababayan at gusto rin ng Pangulo na magkaroon siya ng proyekto base sa kanyang promises during the election. That's number 1 point. Number 2, at the time, there was also a recommendation coming from the World Bank na underspending ang gobyerno, lalong babaksak ang inyong ekonomiya kung hindi nyo i-accelerate ang public spending. And number 3, we have here a president who has the funds. And number 4, it has been a practice at the time by his predecessors na anumang saving, anuman excess funds, talagang ginagamit without any law. And more importantly, at the time, there was no decision coming from the Supreme Court na yung cross-border transfers, yung use ng unprogrammed funds, yung pag-spend ng mga pondo na wala sa appropriation, there is no ruling coming from the Supreme Court that that is unconstitutional. At ang lagi nga namin sinasabi, while the executive and the legislature under the Constitution do not have the power to interpret the law, whether it is constitutional or unconstitutional, kami ang unang binibigyan ng pagkakataon to make the interpretation. Hindi kami gagawa ng batas na sa tingin namin ay unconstitutional. So sinisigurado namin as much as possible na yung gagawin naming batas ay constitutional. And in the same vein, the President will not do an act which he considers to be unconstitutional. So dinidetermine din niya, ito bang presidential action, ito bang executive action within the framework of the Constitution. And at that time, there was no decision coming from the Supreme Court.
Okay, can you address...
And I would also to emphasize, sinasabi ng critics ng administrasyon that the President is not obeying the Supreme Court. The President is attacking the Supreme Court. But I wish to emphasize that from the moment na pinail na ang petition questioning the constitutionality or legality of the Disbursement Acceleration Program, and notwithstanding that the prayer of the petitioners for the issuance of TRO ay hindi pinagbigyan ng Supreme Court the President and Secretary Abad, without any TRO, itinigil voluntarily ang DAP. At kahit ngayon na yung decision ay hindi pa final, hindi na rin ginagawa ng ating Pangulo at ng kanyang kabinete ang Disbursement Acceleration Program.
Let's talk about impeachment, yung numbers game, no?
Well,
are you
actually,
going to, as an ally of the President,
Okay.
are you going to let this
Well, it
impeachment
is
go
not
through?
as easy to say that it is a numbers game. Because we have also public accountability. In 2016, we will be facing the public. And on crucial national issues like impeachment, talagang pinag-aaralan niya ng botante. And perhaps I can cite
That will
example.
matter to your constituents?
Definitely. We can consider, for example, reproductive health bill. Yung mga bumoto na kinatawan sa reproductive health bill, then the Roman Catholic Church actively campaigned against them.
Yeah,
At
okay.
itong mga nating mga citizens natin, itong mga civic group na boboto for the dismissal of the impeachment of the President, of course, this would be a political issue which we have to
So,
face
yeah.
at the time when we presented again ourselves to the electorate in 2016
So how is Congressman P.D. Barzaga going
Well,
to
I
vote
would
in
be
the
voting.
impeachment?
against the impeachment of the President for certain reasons. Number one, I do not believe that there is a legal ground to impeach the President. Kasi ang nire-relay lang naman nila would be culpable violation of the Constitution. Pag sinabi natin culpable, there must be willful and intentional violation of the Constitution.
And
Kaya
there
ang
was
sabi
none.
nga ni Dean Bernas, who is an accepted constitutionalist, kahit na i-declare ng Supreme Court na ang constitutional yung DAP, that is not a ground to impeach the President. And so far, among the legal luminaries, while they agree with the Supreme Court regarding its decision about the unconstitutionality of DAP, I have not read any article coming from any legal luminary stating that the act of the President, insofar as DAP is concerned, would be a valid ground for impeachment.
So will the House Committee on Justice, paabutin ba ng House Committee on Justice sufficient in form or sufficient in substance?
Well,
or makakalampas ng committee?
We will discuss its merits. At siguro ito lamang ang ilang punto. At saka higit sa lahat, ang lagi kong sinasabi, as a public official, we consider the paramount interest to guide our action. And at this stage, I don't think we have the president of Makati Business Club that impeaching the president at this stage to have an impeachment process would not be good for the general welfare of the country, although it is a democratic process.
Speaking of democratic process, Kong PD, should criticism or critique be feared in a democracy?
Well, of course not. And I have been always saying that unanimity is impossible in a democratic country. But then let's take this issue historically. President Cory, we have been always saying, is the icon of democracy. I was very active during the People's Revolution, during the struggle, during the period of martial law, and we have been always saying that the President, Cory, was merely a transitional president from martial law to democracy. Now, I would say that President Aquino would be a transformation president because he won under the slogan, no graft and corruption,
Kung walang
walang
corrupt,
mahirap,
walang mahirap.
kung walang korap, at tuwid na daan. Of course, it is not easy to reach that, to realize that political policy. But we have to wait. And so when the President says, either you are with me or against me, siguro ang itanong lamang, ang gusto lamang itanong ng Pangulo, kasama ba kayo sa aking pagbabago na gusto kong naisin dito sa ating bansa?
At kung,
O
hindi
ayaw
ka,
na?
at kung hindi kayo kasama sa pagbabago, that's because you are criticizing.
Oh, no, definitely
Hindi.
not.
Hindi naman.
Hindi naman.
We'll take a short break, and then when we come back, Peter will say something.
Masasabi ko bang okay na rin? At sasabihin ko po sa inyo, mata sa mata. Sa lahat po ng inabot natin, ako po'y masabing kontento na ako. Kontento na po ako dahil panatag ang kalooban ko. Naku, ako po'y mawala na dito, marami po ang magpapatuloy ng ating tinaak na. Baka yun lang po talaga ang papel ko, umpisahan to.
Welcome back to News.PH. I'm Pio Ontiveros. We're still talking about the President's SONA. Peter, perfecto?
Well, I think this president has just taken to heart his whole reform agenda. That's probably why he's hurting. That's probably why he feels bad about the critics. He's serious about it, and that's why he cried. Was because, he feels that he's doing everything, and yet there are those who are saying he's doing nothing. That's all I've been saying. And my point precisely about the impeachment is that you're right. It is part of the democratic process, Sunny. But so is the election. Yun lang naman ang punto. I think we're coming from the same principle about democracy. Siguro, yeah, we have to use all of these different processes. But at the same time, that one process is also that people have spoken. They made their choice. Are you saying now that the people clearly have spoken against this president? Yun ang magandang tanong. But you're right, okay. Malalaman lang yan pag
Yeah, while
sinunod
ago,
yung
Sonny was
process.
saying, diba, parang there's a clamor on the ground. Is there a clamor on the ground as far as like Makati Business Club, businessmen?
Well-
what do you sense? I mean, and you're not just representing MBC. A long time ago, a quarter of a century ago, you were in Ateneo and you were what? Ito, mga one of the maiingay na student leaders. Oo. So I'm sure Peter has his ears to the ground. So
Okay.
is there a clamor?
Kung ang good friend ni Congressman ay sila Toby Chanco, ako ang good friends ko yung the left. Yeah. And yes, on their part, there's a clear clamor. But that's the left. There are many other groups. Akbayan has their work on the ground, on the communities. Pakisama has their work there. There are many other fisher folk groups. And this is not the resounding call. There is a call, though, that yes, Mr. President, makinig naman kayo, meron pa tayong ibang mga issues. Even the business community, we've sent our letter because precisely we feel there are many other things that he can still do
Yeah.
for the rest of his term. And
Yeah.
I guess that's what all of the other groups are saying. So it's a choice of, in the next 2 years, ayaw na ba natin kay Presidente? Or yung ibang mga grupo naman, hindi, Mr. President, last 2 minutes, last 2 years, ito pa, pwede pa natin gawin ito.
Hindi nga last 2 years, a year and 10 months, right?
Yeah.
So what is it going to look like, these remaining months? Can he still do what you want him to do?
I think that with the help of Congress, they should push the FOI bill.
Yeah.
That's very important. And then, again, with the help of Congress, the anti-competition, the antitrust law, so the competition policy, matagal na yan nandyan. And this whole notion of inclusive growth, job generation. Agri still does not have a clear roadmap. It's never had a plan. The reason why CARP has failed is because CARP is not part of a plan for the agricultural sector. It's just parang it's a standalone thing. It was expected to solve everything. It has to be part of a larger plan of the agri sector. In the agri sector, we know the numbers have been going down. So the next 1 year, 10 months, that's enough time for the DA to get its act together and do something better and then finally prove that they deserve to stay there.
Yeah. Before the SONA, I was interviewing, I mean, right before the speech, an hour before the speech, I was interviewing Donald D. He was saying what PCCI wants to hear that afternoon be concrete plans about power and infrastructure. No? And then Miguel Varela was also saying he wants, they want people held accountable, and they want, like what you said, FOI. Was the business group happy with what it heard, yung speech?
Well, I think the business group kasi, like you, we've heard so many SONAs. And in every SONA, we've asked, sana sa SONA ito, can you say this? And we get a few.
Yeah.
So we always know we only get a few. What we're going to do after this letter that we sent to the President is we're going to make separate letters to each of the agencies, precisely trying to talk to them to say, hey, we've got to do these things. All of those things mentioned by Miguel Varela and Donald D. are part of that consolidated letter of the business groups. I would urge all the other groups to come together as well and put together this list of recommendations so that after 2016, we have something also to turn over to the next president, whoever that may be.
Yeah. Very quick question to Kong PD. Will Congress deliver, sir, on the FOI bill?
Well,
Will
the
the House
Speaker
pala?
has made a commitment.
Yeah, that's the Speaker, but what about the individual congressmen? It's your
Well,
votes
I
that
would be
matter.
voting for it. And once the Speaker
You will
says...
vote for it?
Yes. Once the Speaker says, he has the command of the majority. And therefore,
At
I think
susunod lahat.
ang karamihan, ang
Ang
majority.
karamihan. Bakit ayaw sumunod yung iba?
Well, it's not yet being taken up in the committee level. In the plenary, not yet. And I think once since the Speaker has already made a commitment, then I think it will pass. It will be passed in the House of Representatives. And I would like also to mention, considering that there was a statement that many are disappointed with the President not making any commitment in SONA about the Freedom of Information Bill, I distinctly recall that the President has already made a commitment
Before the
insofar
SONA.
as FOI is concerned.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So dapat sumunod lahat sa Kongreso.
Well,
We will
it's-
cover that
what-
live. We will cover that live.
No.
Promise. We will cover that live. Maganda yun, plenary discussion. You wanted to say, Professor Contreras?
You know, he has 1 year, 10 months more. But what I got from his speech on last Monday is there is this tone of trying to already see the end. Parang namamaalam na siya. You know, he ended up na hanggang dito na lang po ako. So for people who do discourse analysis, that's something. Hanggang dito na lang po ako. And then it's also very, and in that line, he also made reference to Vice President Binay. So some people are asking, is this already a president who is already ready to get out? So that's
because
something.
he knows 1 year and 10 months.
1 year,
is a
10
short
months. So,
period,
ang
right?
dami-dami pang kailangan gawin. Di ba yung sinabi nga nito, ang dami pang kailangan gawin. So, yun ang magiging challenge. Nawala na ba ng loob ang presidente? Kaya kailangan na nating itulak pa. So, that's something that needs to be addressed. Because indeed, you know, critics and supporters should really make sure that the president succeeds.
What did you ask? Nawalan na ba ng loob? ang
Nawalan na ba
presidente?
ng loob? Kasi
did
parang-
Did he lose his bearings? Ganon?
Well,
Let's ask Kong PD.
Well, you know, my area in political science is I do a lot of studies of political discourse, the speeches of people.
Right.
And my reading of that is that there is a sense already of because ang daming binabato sa akin, ginagawa ko na lahat ng trabaho ko, may halong inis, may halong frustration, kaya nga napaiyak. So, there is also that sense of pwede naman ako umalis kung gusto ko. Di ba may sinabi siya, kaya andito man ako o wala, somebody will continue. So those kinds of, if it is a planned speech, or even if it's not planned, then may pinanggagalingan niya.
Yeah, there was an unplanned.
Okay.
Kong PD.
Well, the
Has he
critic-
lost his bearings?
No, the
No.
critics are relying on the words, hanggang dito na lamang ako. Kaming mga politikero, tuwing matatapos ang aming talumpati, ang sinasabi namin, hanggang dito na lamang ang aming talumpati. Pangalawa, makikita naman natin sa last portion ng SONA ng ating Pangulo, sinabi niya, the Filipinos are worth dying for, quoting Ninoy Aquino. He also stated that the Filipinos are worth living for. And finally, the Filipinos are worth fighting for. Itong statement na to, they are very categorical. The President want to deliver the strong message na ipagpapatuloy niya to at hindi niya sisirain ang magandang pangalan ng kanyang mga magulang.
So, ang reading nyo is itutuloy pa rin niya,
Yes, and
pero medyo napipikon lang siya ng konti. Gano'n lang.
Quickly.
Yung konting...
Siguro talagang hindi naman napipikon. He
Or
is
hurt,
disappointed,
disappointed,
and hurt
parang-
with the reaction
Medyo
of some
nabibwisit na lang
sectors of
siya.
our community.
Yeah, very quickly.
Yes.
There's this statement in his speech, I forgot, but he's saying that the transformation is really in the hands of the people. That's new in the discourse of the president. He has always had a speech where he is the center. This is the time that he said, you are the source of transformation. Although sinasabi niya dati, boss ko kayo.
Yeah,
Pero
kayo,
pagdating
boss
sa
ko,
transformation, at doon niya pinasok yung, kaya naandyan man ako, wala. So if you're having that already as a message and a speech that is as serious as a SONA, then therefore we have to interpret that also in the context of there's a message that's being said there. And
Could that also be a positive thing? in
There
the
is a
sense that-
posit-
Because among your comments, diba, you said na he used to be full of
Very
himself,
yeah.
quote unquote, no? Pero now, if he's moving the focus away from himself,
exactly.
parang passing
So, pwedeng positive,
on,
but at the same time, andun pa rin yung, pwedeng positive. So, magandang himayin ulit yung nilalaman ng SONA, yung mismong diskurso. Kasi and also the other thing is, I'm also kind of curious about the reference to the Vice President, about the past, that we have been together in this fight in the past. So,
yeah,
that was-
what do you mean? What do you read
I don't
into
know.
it?
You know,
Anong
that
ibig
was-
sabihin nun
well,
for
I don't want to
2016?
speculate, but
Sige na, go ahead and speculate.
Well, try. You know, there
Liman
are
lang
some,
naman tayo
there are some
dito eh, oh.
speculations that maybe in the maybe there's a chance that the administration might pick Binay and not Mar. So that's something that's being talked about among pundits. So that's something that perhaps is a nice angle into this whole political theater.
Yeah, syempre nakatingin kay Kong PD. Wala pang desisyon ng partido, hindi ba?
Wala pa.
Wala pa.
Wala pa. I think it's too early. Ang sinasabi nga ni Presidente, sabi niyo nga, he has only 1 year and 10 months.
Yeah.
At this stage, kung pag-uusapan na kung sino ang kandidato niya, lalo sigurong dadami ang babatiko sa ating
Pero dapat,
Pangulo.
preparado na kayo behind
Preparado
the
na.
scenes, di ba?
Well,
So sa
actually,
tingin nyo, sino dapat ang kandidato nyo? Mar or Jojo?
well, he been a local chief executive before. And I know the feeling of the people. Kung ako ang presidente, ang gusto ko, ang mananalo ay yung ipagpapatuloy ang aking programa. And as to whether or not, who is that person, it is only the president himself.
No, I'm asking you. Who do you want?
Ako personally, I prefer Marojas.
Okay. Okay. Sunny?
Alam nyo, the biggest problem with the president's speech is actually its greatest novelty. It was so emotional. Again, natatangay tayo to the sincerity, parang, hey, he's different, tao rin siya, nasasaktan siya. Then it's got to the issue eh. It's been 4 years. 4 years is a long time. That's enough time to put breakthrough measures in place in the economy, in terms of our political institutions, in terms of our system. That's 4 years na kung pupunin yung presidente ngayon, irrelevant kung sincere siya o hindi, irrelevant kung nasaktan siya o hindi. The most relevant thing is, anong ginawa mo? Ano yung praktika mo? Tama ba o mali?
Yeah.
Yung
Pero
ginawa niya,
yung tuwid na daan, that wasn't enough.
unfortunately nga
Paving that way.
the danger with this presidency is it's very good actually with the rhetoric eh. Kaya maganda balikan yung DAP.
It's rhetoric lang for you?
Well, maganda balikan yung DAP kasi the DAP was roughly 144 to 150 billion pesos, where the president himself admitted, paraphrase ko na lang, I'm very frustrated with how slow things are, so I'm going to decide on this. But huwag kayong mag-alala, I can be trusted. That actually violates yung pinaka-prinsipyo niya, good governance, may democratic process. But actually with that line of argumentation, has basically said, institutions don't matter, my good intentions matter the most, and I can be trusted,
Yeah.
hindi ko nanakawin, let me decide. So that
Maybe what-
completely violates yung good governance rhetoric, yung good governance statements in the last 4 years, can reduce siya to rhetoric.
Yeah. Maybe we can all agree, I'm sure, all the five of us, that good governance should be about institutions, not people.
Oo.
Not
Yeah.
It should never be about
Personality.
individuals.
Not personalities, and he's personalizing it.
Yeah, we'll have to take one last short break, then we'll come right back.
Itong maiingay na ito, sadyang isinasara ang isip at namumuhay sa sariling mundo at realidad. Habang nakikita ang pagbabago sa lipunan, nangyayari na nga ang ating inaasahan. Lalong dumadalas, lalong umiinit, at lalong tumitindi ang pag-atake nila sa akin. Habang lumilinaw ang benepisyo ng reforma, pahirap ng pahirap ang pag-asang magtagumpay ang paninilang nila.
Welcome back. You're still watching News.PH. I'm Pion Tiveros. We only have enough time for final words. Let's begin with mga maiingay. Sunny.
Ako ba yun?
Hindi ikaw yun.
Well, sa amin, it's very straightforward. It's been 4 years. The President has shown what he is capable of, and unfortunately, what he is not capable of. He's not capable of doing the really difficult decisions in economic policy making. In the last 4 years, we have not seen the breakthroughs in the economy that we need. Despite nga all these nice glowing reports from the IMF, the World Bank, creditors, yung bottom line is, while economic growth has been becoming more rapid, job generation has been falling over the last 4 years. Unambiguous yan. While the present report seemingly a reduction in poverty, he's using a low poverty line of 54 pesos. That's crazy. How can someone survive on 54 pesos per person per day? So he's not actually made a dent against poverty. So para sa amin, there are 2 years left of the administration. If he really wants to create a foundation, he should make a breakthrough in the basic structural economic policies that have bedeviled the Philippines for decades. Yung magiging Peter agrarian reform, it's crazy that right now, after decades of agrarian reform, 3 out of 4 agrarian reform beneficiaries cannot pay for the amortization because they're not getting government support, whereas the government is spending more for landed compensation than agrarian reform beneficiaries. That is crazy, does not make sense. So if there's going to be one reason why Philippine agriculture is so backward, it's because the key to unleashing agricultural productivity, agrarian reform is not happening, and unfortunately, it hasn't happened under this administration. So para sa amin, there are a lot of reasons to believe that this administration has been continuing, unfortunately, decades of failed policies. It's very good with the rhetorical flourish. It's just shown us it's very good also with getting the pulse of the people. Di ba? Magtatagalog sila, tapos ma-EQ naman tayo. We like people, we like human touch sa presidente. Nakuha niya yan, pero if we get down to the nitty-gritty of it, the structural changes we need, the people so desperately need, they are not in place. Very last word, what has been proven, outcomes. Diba? The proof is in the pudding. Over the last 4 years, very, very striking. Unemployment, the numbers have been increasing. The most number of unemployed, underemployed in the history of the Philippines. The worst unemployment in Asia. The numbers of poor not using a low poverty line are increasing. At the same time, very strikingly, the profits of the top 1,000 corporations have increased 34%. The recorded wealth of the top 40 Filipinos has increased 116%, whereas the average daily wage, the real value, has only increased 2 to 3%.
Are you
So
saying
parang
he has
that's it all.
not done anything?
Okay, that's a very sweeping statement, but has he done what really matters? No, he has not done anything. He's done a lot. Hindi siya
He's done a lot.
I mean, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to be president. Pero ang hahanapin mo dyan, bottom line, you have 100 million Filipinos right now. What you've done, have you done something to make a dent on the lives of the poorest 70 million Filipinos? If you haven't, that's not doing anything.
All right, Kong PD, Barzaga, your
Well,
final
of course, ang tinitingnan ko yung nagawa ng ating Pangulo before. The most corrupt agencies in the government happens to be the Bureau of Internal Revenue, the Department of Public Works and Highways, and of course, the Bureau of Customs. Ngayon naman, kitang-kita natin, ang sinabi nga ng ating Pangulo, in 2010, the collection of the Bureau of Internal Revenue was only 1 trillion. In 2014, it was already 1.5 trillion or an increase of 500 billion pesos. Yun, hindi natin na-emphasize na kaya nagkaroon ng pondo ang Pangulo sapagkat yung magandang collection ng Bureau of Internal Revenue, which before happens to be one of the most corrupt agencies. Ganyan yung Department of Public Works and Highways. Talagang nawala ang korupsyon sa DPWH. At yung dating pondo o proyektong 200 million, na doble, umabot ng 400 billion. Of course, the businessmen are still waiting for some changes in the Bureau of Customs. However, kung nakikita ng Pangulo na kailangan magpalit ng mga tao ron, pinapalitan niya, and he even changed his party mate as the collector of customs. Sinasabi natin sa ekonomiya, Sinabi ng ating Pangulo na practically there was no strike during his term. Parang iisa lamang noong 2013. It only shows that there is industrial peace. And that is good for our economy, that is good for our employers and for our investors. Sabi nga ng ating Pangulo, yung sa PESA, 42% of the investments in the PESA zones was made during his time. And that also shows that there is confidence to the Philippines as a country of investment.
Okay.
Pati nga yung ating rating, tumaas. It's easy to borrow money for our government because mataas na ang ating trust rating. And this has been never emphasized sa ordinaryong pag-uusap ng ating mga kababayan.
Well, sir,
Ang naririnig lang natin, yung mga hindi nagawa ng ating
Yeah.
Pangulo.
Well, sir, you just emphasized it. Para tayo nakinig ng replay ng SONA. Thank you very much, Kong PD. Professor Contreras, very quickly.
I personally believe that the president has a good heart. He's a good person. But politics is not just about personalities. Politics is not just about good intentions. It's about institutions. It's about respecting institutional processes. And I think in the case of the DAP, even if we justify it, the president, whether wittingly or unwittingly, willingly or unwillingly, consciously or unconsciously, did something that breached the Constitution. And I think as teachers and politicians and in the media, we have to make this as a learning moment, that we have to teach the young people in this country that even if you have good intentions, you have to also work within the bounds of the law. If you don't want it, then you change the law. You change the Constitution, but unless it's changed, you work within it. So I think that is something that should be emphasized. And that's why the president is getting a lot of this flack. Because ordinary people say, you want us to go into good governance. You want them to go a straight path. But this is the moment that the Supreme Court said you did something wrong. And then you challenge it. You can challenge it quietly, but when he gave that swinging speech, trying to challenge all the 13 justices, or even all the court, then it left a very, very unique lesson to the young.
Okay.
Pwede pala ito.
Okay.
Presidente ito, pero pwede pala to. So yun ang tingin ko, the most powerful image that comes out of this whole political, I would say political event.
Thank you. Peter, perfecto.
Well, I guess we are in a democracy. I think we have a good show of democracy in this show today. And you're right. Let those who want to impeach. Let's go to the process. Let those who want to support. And Mr. President, there's much more to do. Instead of counting your days down, we'd like to work with you to count your reforms up some more. Marami ka nang ginawa. Nandito kami, tutulong kami.
All right. Thank you very much to our guests tonight, Sunny Africa, Professor Contreras, Peter Perfecto, and Kong PD Barzaga. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for watching. See you again next Wednesday. Good night.